The fall and the plea. The void of space was unforgiving as always. Commander Tarek of the Draconian vessel Lastlight watched through cracked view screens as another of his escort ships disappeared in a spectacular flash of plasma fire. The pursuing hegemony battlecruisers didn't even slow their advance, their weapons already charging for another salvo. His people were running out of time. "Shields at 12%, Commander," reported his tactical officer, voice steady despite the desperation of their situation. "Life support failing on decks 3 through 7. The civilian transports are requesting instructions." Tarek's scaled hands clenched into fists, talons digging into his palms until pinpricks of silver blood welled up. The Draconian Imperium, once spanning 17 star systems with technological achievements rivaling any in the known galaxy, had been reduced to this: a handful of battered ships carrying the last 50,000 survivors of their species. "How long until we reach the human border?" Tarek asked, his voice a rasp from the smoke filling the bridge. 23 minutes at current velocity," the navigation officer responded. "But the hegemony forces will be in firing range again in 18. 5 minutes. 5 minutes would determine whether the Draconian species lived or died. 5 minutes to decide if 3 billion years of evolution would end in the cold void between stars. Tarek made his decision. Divert all remaining power from life support to engines and shields. Tell the civilian ships to do the same. "But Commander, that will." "I know what it means," Tarek cut in. "Better some of us suffocate than all of us die in plasma fire. Send the distress signal to the human border patrol now." The communications officer hesitated for only a moment before composing the message that would determine their fate. "To Earth Border Fleet. This is Commander Tarek of the Draconian Refugee Fleet. We seek asylum under the Terran Convention of Sentient Rights. We are pursued by hegemony forces intent on our extinction. 50,000 civilians, including 8,000 children. We beg for sanctuary. This is our final hope." As the message transmitted across the void, Tarek couldn't help but remember how differently things had been just 2 standard years ago. The Draconians had been respected, if not particularly liked, a civilization of scientists and philosophers whose genetic engineering capabilities had made them both envied and feared. They had kept to themselves, rarely interfering in galactic politics, content to pursue knowledge and advancement. Then came the Purge. The galactic hegemony, a coalition of the 12 most powerful species in the galaxy, had passed judgment without warning or trial. The Draconians were accused of developing illegal bioweapons, of planning to unleash genetic horrors upon the galaxy. No evidence was presented. No defense was permitted. The hegemony fleet descended upon the Draconian homeworlds with a single directive: extermination. 2 billion Draconians had perished in the first day. Within a week, their colonies were ash and their once mighty defense fleet reduced to debris fields. Only those fortunate enough to be aboard research vessels in deep space or living on remote outposts survived the initial onslaught. For months, they had gathered their survivors, fleeing from system to system as the hegemony hunted them. Each jump left more of them dead, until Commander Tarek found himself in command of the last remnants of his civilization, fleeing toward the only power in the galaxy the hegemony treated with caution: humanity. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 80 years ago. Their technology was crude by most standards, but what they lacked in refinement they made up for in innovation and sheer belligerence. In the brief Terran hegemony war of 2218, humanity had shocked the galaxy by fighting the vastly superior hegemony forces to a standstill through unconventional tactics and a stubborn refusal to surrender. The resulting peace treaty established Earth and its colonies as independent territory that the hegemony agreed not to violate. It was this border that Tarek now raced toward, hoping that humanity's notorious unpredictability might work in the Draconians' favor. "Commander," the communications officer called out, interrupting Tarek's thoughts. "We're receiving a response from the humans." Tarek's heart hammered in his chest. "Put it through." A hologram flickered to life on the bridge, showing a human female in a dark uniform adorned with silver insignia. Her skin was a rich brown, her hair cropped short, and her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "This is Captain Leora Nash of the Earth Border Fleet Vessel Intrepid," she stated. "We've received your distress call and detected your pursuers. Be advised that bringing a hostile force to Earth borders is considered an act of aggression under Terran law." Tarek stepped forward. "Captain Nash, we have no desire for conflict. We seek only sanctuary for our surviving people. The hegemony intends to eradicate us completely." Nash's expression remained impassive. "And why would they do that, Commander? The hegemony may be many things, but they don't commit genocide without reason." "Without just reason," Tarek corrected bitterly. "They claim we were developing bioweapons. It's a lie, an excuse to eliminate a species whose capabilities they feared but could not control." For several agonizing seconds, Nash was silent, studying him. Tarek was acutely aware of how his people appeared to humans, 2.5 meters tall, with scaled skin that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, eyes with vertical pupils, and a frame that seemed simultaneously reptilian and avian. Humans had a long evolutionary history of fearing such features. "You're asking me to potentially start a war with the hegemony," Nash finally said. "You understand that?" Tarek bowed his head. "I understand that I'm asking you to save the last of my kind. If you turn us away, the draconian species ends today. Our culture, our knowledge, our children, all of it will be lost forever." The ship shuddered as another hegemony blast struck their failing shields. Damage reports flooded in from all decks. "They're in range," the tactical officer announced grimly. Nash's eyes widened slightly as she observed the attack through the communication link. Her gaze shifted to something off-screen before returning to Tarek. "Commander Tarek, alter your course to these coordinates," she said as data streamed to the draconian nav system. "Bring your ships into formation with mine. Consider yourselves under Earth's provisional protection pending official asylum procedures." Relief flooded through Tarek's exhausted body. "Thank you, Captain. We—" "Don't thank me yet," Nash interrupted. "My government may still decide to hand you over. And the hegemony doesn't appear to be slowing down." Indeed, the pursuing fleet maintained its course, bearing down on them with weapons still charged. Within moments, the sleek forms of 6 Earth border fleet vessels came into view, forming a protective screen between the draconian refugees and their hunters. "Attention hegemony vessels," Nash's voice rang out on an open channel. "You are approaching Earth-controlled space in pursuit of vessels that have requested asylum. Halt your advance immediately." The response came quickly, the translation software struggling to convey the mixture of outrage and condescension in the hegemony commander's voice. "Human captain, you interfere in matters beyond your understanding. These criminals have violated multiple provisions of hegemony law. Their extermination has been legally sanctioned. Stand aside or face the consequences." Nash's reply was remarkably calm. "These criminals include thousands of children who, I'm fairly certain, haven't violated any laws. As signatories to the Galactic Refugee Accords, Earth is bound to provide temporary sanctuary while asylum claims are assessed. Any attempt to attack vessels under our protection will be considered an act of war. You would risk war for these aberrations?" The hegemony commander demanded. "I would risk war to uphold our principles," Nash countered. "That's kind of our thing." The standoff lasted for 10 excruciating minutes as the hegemony fleet maintained position just outside weapons range of the human vessels. Finally, the lead battlecruiser transmitted once more. "We will report this interference to the Hegemony Council. Earth will face sanctions for this transgression. The Draconians cannot hide forever." With that ominous warning, the pursuing fleet slowly turned away, though not before dispatching what were clearly automated reconnaissance drones to monitor the situation. As the immediate danger passed, Tarek found himself struggling to process what had just happened. The humans, A species his own people had largely ignored as primitive upstarts, had just placed themselves between the Draconians and extinction. "Your ships are cleared to proceed to Ganymede Station for processing," Captain Nash informed him. "Medical teams will meet you there. I'll be honest with you, Commander. You've just created the biggest diplomatic incident since first contact. The politicians are going to be furious." "We will compensate Earth for this risk," Tarek promised. "The Draconians still possess knowledge and technology that would be valuable to humans." Nash's expression softened slightly. "Let's focus on getting your people safe first. The bureaucrats can argue about compensation later." As the battered Draconian fleet limped toward Jupiter's moon under human escort, Tarek gazed at the distant blue-white sphere of Earth. To his people, it was humanity's cradle, an unremarkable world orbiting an unremarkable star. Yet somehow, this planet had produced the only species willing to stand against the overwhelming might of the hegemony for the sake of strangers. The humans had given the Draconians something they had almost lost entirely: hope. But Tarek knew that hope came with a price. The hegemony would not simply accept this defiance. Earth had made itself a target, and sooner or later, the Draconians would have to justify the humans' faith in them. For the first time since the purge began, Tarek allowed himself to consider a future beyond mere survival. Perhaps, just perhaps, this unlikely alliance might become something more, something that could challenge the hegemony's unquestioned dominance of the galaxy. But first, they had to survive the coming storm. Sanctuary and retribution. The vast biodomes of Ganymede Station had never been designed to house 50,000 alien refugees. Originally built as Earth's primary research facility for deep space exploration, the station had been hastily repurposed in the 3 months since the Draconian arrival. Prefabricated habitation units covered the station's southern quadrant, their utilitarian gray contrasting starkly with the carefully cultivated green spaces that formed the station's heart. Dr. Eliza Chen, Earth's foremost xenobiologist and the newly appointed liaison to the Draconian refugees, hurried through the crowded corridors toward the diplomatic center. The emergency council session was scheduled to begin in 10 minutes, and she was bringing news that would change everything. She found Commander Tarek in the preparation room, his tall frame hunched over a data terminal, the bioluminescent patterns on his scales dimmed with fatigue. 3 months of diplomatic limbo had taken their toll on the Draconian leader. "Commander," she called, slightly out of breath. "I've confirmed it. The genetic samples are conclusive." Tarek straightened, his vertical pupils dilating slightly. "You're certain?" "Absolutely," Chen replied, uploading her findings to the main system. "The hegemony's claims were a complete fabrication. Not only were your people not developing bioweapons, but the genetic markers they cited as evidence don't even exist in Draconian DNA. It was all manufactured." A complex pattern of blue-green light rippled across Tarek's scales, an expression of bitter vindication that Chen had learned to recognize. "Will it be enough?" he asked. Chen's expression tightened. "It should be. But the hegemony delegation is already trying to block my presentation. And there's something else. Intelligence reports massive fleet movements near the border. They're not waiting for diplomatic solutions anymore." "The hegemony never intended to negotiate," Tarek said grimly. "They merely needed time to organize a sufficient force to strike at Earth without risking significant losses." The door slid open, revealing Captain Nash, now promoted to Admiral following her role in the initial Draconian rescue. Her uniform bore the additional insignia of her new rank, but her expression carried the same determined focus. "They've moved up the vote," Nash announced without preamble. "The council meets in 5 minutes. The hegemony representatives are pushing for immediate revocation of the Draconians' temporary protected status." Chen cursed under her breath. "They're trying to force a decision before I can present my findings." "Then we'll have to change the game," Nash replied, her eyes glinting with the same tactical intelligence that had saved the Draconians 3 months earlier. "Commander Tarek, it's time to reveal your contingency plan." The council chamber, with its dramatic circular design and soaring transparent dome showing Jupiter's swirling mass overhead, was already tense when they arrived. Representatives from Earth's various nations and colonial holdings sat on one side, while a delegation of 3 hegemony officials occupied the opposition seats. The gallery was filled with observers, including several Draconians permitted to witness the proceedings that would determine their fate. Earth's Secretary General, Abioi Okafor, called the session to order with visible reluctance. At 73, he had guided humanity through numerous crises, but none with such potentially catastrophic consequences. This emergency session will now vote on Resolution 147, regarding the status of Draconian refugees currently under Earth's protection, he announced. The hegemony delegation has requested immediate action due to what they describe as critical security concerns. The lead hegemony representative, a tall, willowy being with paper-thin skin that revealed pulsing organs beneath, rose to speak. Ambassador Zex of the Krith species was renowned as the hegemony's most skilled diplomat, though diplomat in hegemony terms often meant sophisticated threat delivery system. Honorable representatives of Earth, Zex began, his translator converting his whistling language into smooth, accentless English. We have been patient. For 91 of your days, we have allowed Earth to harbor genocidal criminals against the explicit ruling of the Galactic Hegemony Council. This patience was extended out of respect for humanity's unique position and our desire to maintain peaceful relations. The ambassador's translucent fingers gestured to a holographic display that materialized in the center of the chamber, showing complex molecular structures. These are the bioweapons developed by the Draconian Imperium, designed specifically to target the neurological systems of multiple sentient species. Our intelligence confirmed their existence in multiple Draconian research facilities before the regrettable but necessary action taken against their civilization. Dr. Chen stepped forward, interrupting the carefully choreographed presentation. Those molecular structures are falsified, she declared, activating her own data stream to the central display. I've analyzed Draconian genetic samples extensively, and they are biologically incapable of creating the compounds you've shown. Ambassador Zex's inner organs pulsed with what those familiar with Krith physiology recognized as irritation. Dr. Chen, while your expertise in terrestrial biology is noted, the hegemony has access to scientific resources far beyond Earth's capabilities. Our findings were verified by the foremost experts from 12 advanced civilizations. Experts who never actually examined Draconian biological samples, Chen countered, projecting additional data. Because if they had, they would have noticed this fundamental incompatibility in base pair structures that makes your claimed bioweapons scientifically impossible for Draconians to have created. Murmurs spread through the Earth delegation as the technical evidence mounted. Ambassador Zex moved to regain control of the narrative. The technical details are secondary to the practical reality, he stated. The Hegemony Council has made its judgment. Earth must comply or face the consequences. Our patience has limits, and those limits have been reached. Admiral Nash stepped forward then, her military bearing commanding attention. Are you threatening Earth, Ambassador? Because I should remind you that threats against Earth have historically not ended well for those making them. The chamber fell silent at the barely veiled reference to the Terran Hegemony War, a conflict the hegemony preferred to pretend had never happened, given how poorly their supposedly superior forces had fared against human ingenuity. Ambassador Zex's skin flushed with darker colors. It is not a threat, but a reality. The hegemony fleet has mobilized to secure our borders against potential Draconian bioterrorism. If Earth continues to harbor these criminals, we cannot guarantee the safety of human ships or colonies near the border regions. It was then that Commander Tarek finally rose to speak, his towering frame drawing all eyes in the chamber. For many of the Earth representatives, this was their first time seeing a Draconian in person rather than through recordings. Representatives of Earth, he began, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. I come before you not as the military commander I once was, but as the caretaker of my species' final hope. For 3 months, You have sheltered us, fed us, and treated our wounds while diplomatic solutions were sought. We are eternally grateful." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the assembled officials before landing on Ambassador X. "But we will not allow Earth to suffer for its compassion. If the Council votes to revoke our protected status, the Draconian refugees will voluntarily depart Earth's space rather than bring war to our protectors." Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber. Where would the Draconians go? It would be tantamount to suicide. Secretary General Okafor leaned forward. "Commander Tarek, such an action would almost certainly lead to the destruction of your remaining people." "Perhaps," Tarek acknowledged. "But before our departure, we would provide Earth with this." He activated a secure data crystal, projecting its contents into the chamber's display system. Complex schematics and technical specifications filled the air. "This is the complete technical database of the Draconian Imperium," Tarek explained as the Earth representatives stared in amazement. "Our advancements in genetic engineering, quantum physics, and faster-than-light technology, developments that would accelerate human scientific progress by an estimated century. We offer this freely, as payment for the sanctuary you provided when no one else would." The implications were staggering. The technologies displayed represented solutions to problems Earth scientists had been struggling with for decades. The medical applications alone would transform human healthcare overnight. Ambassador X rose in fury. "This is precisely what we feared. The Draconians are weaponizing their knowledge, turning Earth into a proxy for their revenge." "No," Tarek countered calmly. "We are ensuring that our knowledge survives even if we do not. That the 3 billion years of Draconian evolution and 30,000 years of our civilization will not be entirely erased by the hegemony's lies." The Secretary General studied the schematics with growing understanding. "These technologies, they're defensive in nature." "Primarily, yes," Tarek confirmed. "The Draconian Imperium was never militaristic. We developed advanced shields and sensor systems because we devoted ourselves to exploration and research in dangerous regions of space." Admiral Nash stepped forward again. "Mr. Secretary, our preliminary analysis indicates that integration of Draconian shield technology with Earth's existing defense systems would increase our defensive capabilities by approximately 300%. Their sensor enhancements would extend our early warning systems to 3 times their current range." The implication was clear. With these technologies, Earth would become significantly harder for the hegemony to intimidate or attack. Ambassador X recognized the shifting dynamic and played his final card. "The hegemony fleet is already in position. If Earth does not surrender the Draconians within 24 hours, we will have no choice but to take action to neutralize the threat." A tense silence fell over the chamber. The threat was no longer veiled. It was an ultimatum. It was Dr. Chen who broke the silence, her scientific focus cutting through the diplomatic posturing. "Ambassador, earlier you mentioned that the hegemony fleet has mobilized to secure your borders. May I ask which borders specifically?" The question seemed odd, but the ambassador answered smoothly. "The fleet is positioned to prevent any potential escape or attack by Draconian agents hidden among their refugee population." Chen nodded thoughtfully. "And these positions were determined how long ago?" "The deployment order was issued approximately 40 of your days ago," Zex replied, clearly wondering where this line of questioning was leading. "Interesting," Chen said, pulling up navigational data, "because according to these star charts, the hegemony fleet is currently positioned along a direct invasion route to Earth, not in defensive positions around hegemony territory. And these positions were established before my research proving the Draconians' innocence was even completed." The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations as the strategic map appeared, showing clearly that the hegemony forces had been planning an attack on Earth regardless of the diplomatic outcome. Secretary General Okafor's expression hardened. "Ambassador X, would you care to explain why your fleet is positioned for an attack on Earth, rather than for defensive purposes as you claimed?" The ambassador's inner organs pulsed rapidly. This is a misinterpretation of standard hegemony fleet deployment patterns. No, interrupted Admiral Nash. It's a textbook invasion formation. I've studied enough military history to recognize it. She turned to the Secretary General. Sir, this was never about the Draconians. The hegemony has been looking for an excuse to bring Earth under its control since the war. Our independence has been a thorn in their side for decades. The revelation changed everything. What had been a debate about the fate of alien refugees suddenly became a discussion about Earth's own survival. Secretary General Okafor stood, his decision clear. In light of this evidence and the hegemony's apparent hostile intent, I am invoking Emergency Protocol 7. All Draconian refugees are hereby granted permanent protected status on Earth and its colonies. Furthermore, in recognition of the shared threat we now face, I propose the formation of a formal alliance between Earth and the Draconian survivors. The Earth delegation erupted in applause, though nervous glances were exchanged as well. They had just committed to a potential war with the most powerful force in the galaxy. Ambassador Zex rose, trembling with barely controlled rage. This decision will be the end of human independence. The hegemony's patience is exhausted. Your threats would be more effective if your fleet wasn't already deployed for attack, Nash replied coolly. You never intended to let us choose freely. At least now we face you honestly, as enemies rather than under the pretense of diplomacy. As the hegemony delegation stormed out, Commander Tarek approached Secretary General Okafor, performing the formal draconian gesture of profound gratitude. A complex movement involving both hands placed over the heart. Earth has saved the draconian people twice now, he said solemnly. First our lives, and now our honor. We will not forget this debt. The Secretary General returned the gesture awkwardly but sincerely. The road ahead will not be easy, Commander. The hegemony is powerful. Yes, Tarek agreed, but they have never faced the combined ingenuity of humans and Draconians. Perhaps it is time the galaxy learned that power comes in many forms, and that compassion need not mean weakness. As the council chamber emptied, Dr. Chen joined Admiral Nash and Commander Tarek by the vast window overlooking Jupiter's swirling surface. The hegemony will attack within days, Nash said quietly. Yes, Tarek replied, but they will find us ready. My engineers have already begun integrating our shield technology with your defense systems. Chen looked between them. Do we really have a chance against their entire fleet? Nash smiled grimly. The hegemony has always relied on overwhelming force and technological superiority, but they've never understood humanity's greatest strength. Which is? Chen asked. We're our most dangerous when protecting others, Nash replied. Throughout human history, we've accomplished the impossible when fighting for something beyond ourselves. She turned to Tarek. Now we fight not just for our own freedom, but for the survival of your people. That makes us twice as determined and twice as dangerous. As the massive hegemony fleet approached Earth space in the days that followed, they anticipated a brief, decisive victory that would finally bring the troublesome humans to heel and eradicate the last of the Draconians. What they encountered instead was humanity unleashed, a species fighting with the desperation of those protecting their home, and the innovation born from Draconian scientific genius. The battle that followed would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever, beginning a new age where the combined forces of Earth and the remaining Draconians would challenge the hegemony's unopposed rule. But that, as the humans would say, is another story. For the Draconians, who had lost everything and expected only extinction, finding not just shelter but also allies willing to fight alongside them was more than they had dared hope for. And for humanity, the decision to stand by their principles against overwhelming odds was simply who they were. A young, brash species that had not yet learned that some things were supposed to be impossible. As Commander Tarek had observed in his first message to his people after the alliance was formalized, we sought sanctuary and found something far greater. We found equals. Perhaps that is what the hegemony truly feared all along.